Hello, this is Chaotix. Over a couple weeks ago, I put out a survey, which was mostly all about Funky Friday settings, among a few other things. With over 250 responses, I want to figure out what the most common settings are, alongside the most popular animations and emotes. If you missed the chance to respond to the survey, don't worry, I'll be doing a survey for Friday Night Blocks and eventually as well. I'm just not sure when exactly. A few things before you begin. This is a very small sample size. Like I said, there's over 250 responses, which is much less than the daily player count of Funky Friday. This is just for a bit of fun and 100% does not accurately portray anything. As well as this, take some of this information with a grain of salt, or I guess an even bigger grain of salt. Some people may have misunderstood the questions, which is absolutely my fault, whoops, and some may have just forgotten what settings they used. And lastly, every result will be shown on screen to the best of my ability. I might have gotten some things wrong, but with that being said, let's get started. Starting off with what the most common platform to play the game is. 76.7% of players play on a PC or laptop, 20.2% play on mobile or tablet, and only 3.1% of players play on Xbox. For some exact numbers, 198 on PC and laptop, 52 on mobile and tablet, and only 8 on Xbox. Around 82.2% of players have tried playing Funky Friday on a different platform to the one they chose, with the other 17.8% not doing so. Ignoring the 20.5% of players who said they don't play on PC or laptop, 40.5% of players use an FPS unlocker, with 59.5% of them saying they don't. Whether it's because they can't handle using it or if it's because they don't have a real reason to do so, I'm not sure. How many hours do people have in Funky Friday? 4.3% of players have spent less than 10 hours playing the game, 8.1% of players have spent between a total of 10 to 49 hours, 10.9% of players have spent a total of 50 to 99 hours, 17.8% of players have spent between 100 to 199 hours, 38% of players have spent between 200 and 499 hours, and 20.9% of players have spent over 500 hours in Funky Friday. As for the total amount of wins, 4.3% of players have less than 10 wins, 4.7% have between 10 and 49 wins, 50.5% have between 50 and 199 wins, 17.1% have between 200 and 499 wins, 23.3% of players have between 500 and 999 wins, and 35.3% of players have over 1,000 wins. Fun fact, out of the 54 players who've said they've played the game for more than 500 plus hours, 40 of them have over 1,000 plus wins. Next up, the keybinds. This is one of the answers I've been most curious about. And do note that I've included people who've added multiple keybinds. Unsurprisingly, the most common set of keybinds are DFJK, with 46 players using them. Other common keybinds include ASKL with 21 players, ZX comment period with 13, AS semicolon and quote, and AS upright with 11 players, and 11 players also using arrow keys. More keybinds will be scrolling on the screen now. Next up, scroll speed. Surprisingly enough, the most common scroll speed is in fact 2, with 53 users or 20.5%. Going down, we have 2.1 with 29 users, 20 users with 2.2, 20 users with 1.9, 15 users with 1, 14 users with 1.8 and 2.3, and 11 users with 2.5. More stats should be on the screen now. As for arrow size, unsurprisingly a lot of people leave this at its default, with 78 players using 1. The next most common is the largest arrow size of 1.35, with 64 players. 37 players have the set to 1.2, 16 players have the set to 1.25, 15 players have the set to 1.1, and 10 players have the set to 1.3. Once again, more stats will be on screen now. scroll direction is up next, and this is one I wasn't really expecting. 54.7% of players prefer using down scroll instead of up scroll. That is 141 players versus 117. Now it's time for the main settings, starting with game modes. 69.8% of players have multiplayer stages enabled. This doesn't exactly tell much though, since this as well as song rates can be turned on during song selection. Speaking of song rates, 58.9% of players have song rates enabled, 49.6% of players have deathmatch enabled, 51.6% of players have note mechanics enabled, 63.6% of players have mod charts enabled, 54.7% of players have multi-key enabled, and 5.8% of players have none of these enabled. I'm personally surprised by how many people have mod charts enabled, but then again, there is still only one actual mod chart in the game, and it doesn't work. Next up are gameplay settings. But hold it! If you've answered the survey, you might be wondering where the optimization settings are. Unfortunately, I don't think I did a good job of explaining it well, and as a result there's a lot of results that don't really make much sense. And as such, I've decided to ignore it for this video. If you want to take a look for yourself though, I'll leave the spreadsheet with all of the answers in the description. 35.3% of players have toggle camera movement enabled. Meanwhile, 43.8% of players have toggle camera directional movement on. 75.6% of players have bot play enabled. 54.3% of players have instant animation snapping enabled. 51.2% of players have hold animation shake enabled. 54.3% of players have hide spectators enabled. 24.8% of players have hide seated players enabled. And 90.7% of players have ghost tabbing enabled. 87.6% of players have middle scroll enabled. 75.2% of players have the opponent's arrows when middle scroll is on enabled. 56.6% of players have the health bar enabled. Only 18.2% of players have the missed note sound enabled, likely because it's pretty annoying during gameplay. And only 3 people have none of these settings enabled. As for the UI settings, 93.4% of players have the info bar enabled. 88.8% of players have the opponent's info bar enabled as well. 55% of players have the accuracy gauge enabled. 76.7% of players have judgment statistics enabled. 70.2% of players have toggle node effects enabled. 79.5% of players have hit accuracy indicators enabled. 63.2% of players have colored hit accuracy indicators enabled. 62.4% of players have not hit time enabled. And 2.7% of players have none of these enabled. Fun fact, out of all the players who have the info bar enabled, only 4 of them do not have the opponent's info bar enabled. Finally, let's talk about the arrow settings before we move on to more specific settings. 67.1% of players have arrow replication enabled. 64.3% of players have arrow style replication enabled. Exactly 50% of players have arrow fade enabled. 53.9% of players have pressed arrow glow enabled. And 19.4% of players have none of these enabled. Now, some more specific settings, starting with scroll underlay transparency. Surprisingly, at the top is 0, with 23.6% of players. Next to it is 1 with 20.6% of players, and 0.5 with 18.6% of players. Next up is our offset. Unsurprisingly, most people have not changed this, with 84.5% of players leaving this at 0. A few players do have this set to a couple of other offsets, however. 5 players have this arrow offset set to just 1, as well as minus 15, and 4 players have this set to minus 20. Up next is hitbox offset. Like arrow offset, most people haven't changed this either, with 86.8% of players leaving this set to 0. However, 3 people have this set to minus 10, minus 3, and 10 respectively. Next, we have note skins. As a quick heads up, some players have chosen multiple note skins, and these will all be counted. Wide note skins will also be counted towards the original note skin as well. So for example, circular and circular wide, they are both the same thing. I've also had to make some assumptions of what people meant, since some responses were just Osu. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I'll be assuming most OS skins refer to the OS Eliminate note skin, as, spoiler alert, that's the most common OS note skin. In first place, we have Circular, with a staggering 96 players, or roughly 37.2%. In second, we have OS Eliminate, with 47, or 18.2%. And in third, with the Default, with 40, or 15.5%. A more comprehensive list should be on the screen now. I was originally going to also find out what the most common note skin colours were, but unfortunately I think that would be a bit too much effort to figure out, especially since people posted their colours differently. If you want to figure it out for yourself though, a link to the spreadsheet will be in the description. Whilst we're here, I also want to find out what the most common / favourite animations, emotes, microphone and speaker skins are, starting with animations. The most common / favourite animation is Camellia with 15 players. Next to it is the default animation with 12 players, and in third place is the Cappy animation with 9 players. A list of all the animations that were posted will be on the screen now. Next up, the most common emotes. In first place is the most expensive emote, Hank TP3 with 26 players. In second place is the Sonic and Tails emote with 23 players. And in third place we have the default emote with 17. A list of all the emotes and how many people chose them should be on the screen now as well. Before we move on to microphone skins, I wanted to know how many people have gotten the bronze, silver and gold microphones. 43.4% of players have gotten the bronze microphone, 25.2% of players have gotten the silver microphone, and 19.8% of players have gotten the gold microphone, with only 11.6% of players not having any of them. This means that 88.4% of players at the very least have the bronze microphone, which I think is pretty neat. Now the most common / favourite microphone skins. The most common microphone skin is, or isn't surprisingly, the Empowered Anim mic with 33 players. Right next to it is the default microphone with 28 players, and right next to it is, surprisingly, the silver microphone with 24, just edging out the bronze microphone which has 23. Once again, a list of all the microphones will be on the screen now. And finally, the most used speaker skin. Over the lead is the Hotline 024 speaker, with 46.9% of players. Next up is the default skin at 24.8%, then the FNF speaker with 20.2%, and finally the Christmas 2022 speaker with only 8.1% of players using it. This question was for my own curiosity, but I also wanted to find out how many people actually use the avatar creator. If you're unaware, this button on the top left of the screen takes you to the avatar creator, which lets you dress up as whatever you like. Out of 258 responses, 194 of them, or 75.2% of players, say they do not use the avatar creator, with the other 64 players, or 24.8%, who say they do. Another thing I wanted to know is if people owned a tag or not. As expected, about half the player base hasn't, with 53.1% of players not owning a tag. 23.3% of players own one tag, with 23.6% of players owning at least 2 or more. Combined, that's a total of 46.9% of players who own at least one tag. I also asked if people have bought anything using Robux. A vast majority of people haven't, with exactly 69% of players not having bought anything. Nice! 21.3% of players have bought points using Robux, 5% of players have bought the 2x points game pass, 3.9% of players have bought multiple things with Robux, and only 2 people have admitted to paying to skip the grind during an event. Don't worry, your secret is safe with me. Near the end now, I asked players for their opinion what the best event that Funky Friday had. The choices were the Anim Dude boss fight, the Beatbox Battle Cactus boss fight, the Final Escape event, the Lord X event, the RB Battles event, Sonic Prime event, and the Christmas 2022 event. Right in the lead, as some may have expected, is the Anim Dude boss fight with 48.4%. In second place, the Beatbox Battle Cactus boss fight with 19.8%, which I personally didn't expect considering barely anyone talks about it. And in third place is the Final Escape event with 16.3%. Going in order of most popular after this, we have the RB Battles event with 7.4%, the Sonic Prime event with 3.9%, the Christmas 2022 event with 2.7%, and in absolute dead last is the Lord X event, with only 4 people, or 1.6%, voting for it. The last actual question asks if you've played any of the following games: Friday Night Bloxin, Monday Morning Misery, and Lemon Funky, with an added other box to enter any games I may have missed. 96.9% of players who responded to the survey have at least played Friday Night Bloxin. 88.4% of players have at least played Monday Morning Misery, and 52.3% of players have at least played Lemon Funky. There were also plenty of other answers that people posted, but unfortunately I won't be covering all of them in this video. If you're interested, the spreadsheet is, again, linked in the description. And finally, I asked if there was anything you wanted to say or mention. I won't be posting everyone's responses since there's 200 of them, so on screen I've left some of my personal favourites. Text in yellow is me responding to some of them. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about now. Obviously there wasn't a whole lot of responses, and a lot of my viewers have at the very least spent a lot of time with the game, so take a majority of this with a grain of salt. But regardless, I hope you learned something new. I sure as hell did. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, and subscribe. That's what everyone says to me anyway. I stream sometimes, and I have memberships available if you want to support the channel in a more direct way and gain some cool perks. I also have a Discord server, links in the description. And with that, I shall see you all next time. Ciao for now. Special thank you to Brother Burb, Taser Mig, Jaden Rod 123, Yoshi God 211, Iron Tired 7846, and Applemost for becoming Black Mages. I appreciate all of your support.